Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Hey, LVZ. Ain't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. And we're just going to talk about something that really is weather related. We've had a very bitterly cold winter. So I'm not surprised that a pipe burst and raw sewage went into the Potomac. And, people were talking about their experience of driving around that area and they could smell it, even passing through. And I think altogether 400 million gallons of raw sewage went into the Potomac. And, it's one of those things that occur, we're going to have a lot of water main breaks. Usually, when we have a bitterly cold winter, as soon as it starts warming up, you're going to see a lot of water main breaks going on around you or like in big cities and stuff. That's usually when it will happen as soon as it starts warming up in the winter. But it was cold. I mean, look, we had nights in the single digits. That's how cold it got. And whenever you have that type of intensive cold weather, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that this pipe ruptured. I'm not surprised. So, and you can clearly see in some of the pictures, you can see like the raw sewage in the water. You can see even toilet paper floating on the water. And you can see even parts of the Potomac that's frozen, you know? So you can tell even when this happened, it was still bitterly cold outside around in that area. So, yeah, so this is crazy that that amount leaked into just spilled all into the Potomac. Now, they're trying to clean it up. I did see those big pipes where they're trying to, suck it all up out there. You're never gonna get all of it. That amount, it's impossible. You can try to get as much as you can, but it's impossible to get all of it. It is absolutely impossible. And I was also reading some of it floated over 10 miles, downstream, it's floating away from that area. So, yeah, you can't get it all. You could probably get some of it, but you'll never get it all. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it is pretty gross. Mhm. But you know what? It's best that it goes into the Potomac. Sometimes that raw sewage backs up into people's homes. So I know it's disgusting, but it's better it goes in there than back up into people's homes or back up into an apartment building because that stuff has happened here in my state where one of the pipes will rupture and some people will get raw sewage from the whole neighborhood backing up into their bathroom, you know? Yeah, you certainly don't want that. Mhm. Yeah, and it's like anything. When you have that amount of raw sewage, you're gonna have, yeah, disease. Because I was reading it had E. coli and other things in there. That's normal. That's normal. Yeah. So let me go ahead and share my screen. But that is a clear sign of how intensely cold the weather has been in this area up and down the East Coast. It's been extremely cold. It's warming up a bit now, but over the past few weeks, it's been very cold. Please give me a one if you can see my screen. Yeah. They gotta clean it up because they use that water. It's like any other body of water that's around you, people use that for drinking, and that's the water that comes out of your faucet, but, one thing, we all have treatment plants all around the country, so the water will get treated, but yeah, it is is a problem when stuff like that happen and it goes into water that's such a big area of people use. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning. It's Mayor Aaliyah Gaskins, and I have an important update for you today. Yesterday, February 13th, the Virginia Department of Health issued a recreational water advisory for the Potomac River, including along Alexandria's waterfront. The purpose of this advisory is in response to the massive sewage spill on January 19th. You might be asking, why are they issuing an advisory now? Well, my understanding is that it's in response to three factors that have emerged. One, there are reports of an additional spill on February 7th. Second, it is believed that it'll take about 4 to 6 weeks for repairs. And third, the warmer temperatures, there's concern that more people might start to access the water. So this advisory is specifically related to recreational activities or activities in the water, like swimming or wading in the water or activities where water might touch your body. It is not related to Alexandria's drinking water. Our drinking water is safe. The reason being is that we get our water from Fairfax water, and where Fairfax water draws their water from is further upstream than this spill. In terms of how these advisories work, it is usually Maryland that issues the advisory. That's because even though Maryland and Virginia have a long-standing relationship of managing the water, it's the Maryland Department of Environment that does the testing and actually has jurisdiction over the river. What you should know is that the role of the Alexandria Health Department is to keep you informed. And so you're going to be seeing messages on the health department's social media channels, as well as through our e-news. You'll also see signage posted along the waterfront to prevent people from going in the water. And you'll see continued updates as more information becomes available. If you are interested in learning more about the spill or learning more about the types of recreational activities that you should avoid, please visit the Virginia Department of Health. They have a sewage spill page where you can go and get more information.
And if you look at the river, it's pretty clear and blue, but this stretch right here is brown and gray, and you can see little shreds of toilet paper. It reeks of sewage. So I've been a Riverkeeper now for 25 years, and I've dealt with what I thought were pretty big sewage spills of 15, 20 million gallons, but this is dumping about 60 million gallons a day for the last 5 days into the Potomac River. And if you do the math, we're well over 200 million gallons of raw sewage that's dumped into the river. This may be one of the largest sewage spills that we've ever seen in the United States, and nobody's really reporting about it. I've never seen it this low, even in the summer. So you can just see the concentration of sewage is really high.
You can see the bits of excrement, and whether that's feces or like it's toilet paper, that's kind of what's floating around.
I've seen people walking their dogs down here. We've got reports of fish kills downriver. This is a really important public health issue, and they need to close this river down and prevent any type of public access for people actually using this river.
You are currently looking at 200 million gallons of raw, untreated sewage flowing straight out into the Potomac River. This is one of the largest sewage spills in U.S. history. It smells awful here. So it's safe to say the poop situation is crazy. We have raw sewage running straight out into the Potomac. Is it one massive leak or is it a whole bunch of leaks? You don't know? Okay. I might get kicked out for going over here. All right, we'll go here. One thing is for sure, though, they are hard at work at stopping this, it seems like. So, do you guys know how long it'll take until it's all cleaned up, roughly? Like weeks or? I don't know. Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I love they decided to set up the porta potties right beside the sewage leak as well. There's some irony there. Okay, so what I was standing by was the end run of the sewage. So when I was down by the river there, it seems like all of that is coming straight from this. I mean, this is just disgusting, and this is just such an environmental failure.
But thankfully, DC Water did build a $55 million waterfront office so they have a front row view and can smell their own lack of maintenance.
We're here at the next to the C&O Canal. What we've heard happened on Super Bowl Sunday right after halftime. This is a phenomenon that that apparently is seen by wastewater utility companies across the country. After the halftime show is over, America relieves itself. This past Sunday when that happened, the overflow was enough that these man-made trenches can't handle it, so it spills into a creek that runs around under, I guess, the side of where we are, but then under the canal into a culvert, and then makes its way into the Potomac. Increased levels of E. coli, other potentially harmful bacteria building up in the Potomac because of that. Since the Potomac Interceptor collapsed at this part of the line, crews have been pumping wastewater into the previously dry canal, diverting it around the break. And it runs down maybe up to like a half mile before it's kind of diverted through an earthen dam and back into the pipeline. Crews are in the process of using the heavy machinery to try and remove large rocks and boulders that are blocking their access to the collapsed portion of the pipe. This is something that we've heard could take more than a month, up to a month and a half.
DC Water admitted it miscalculated E. coli levels from a Potomac River sewage spill. It turns out the actual numbers are 100 times worse than first reported. On Friday, the agency initially reported levels at 2,420 mpn per 100 milliliters.
Behind me is the Potomac River. And yes, this is the river that I fish all the time. This section of the river belongs to Washington, D.C. D.C. is up over there. The airport's over there. I'm going to go to a different river just because this river is not safe right now. We are having 400 million gallons of raw sewage being spewed into this river. It's been going on for 3 to 4 weeks, and they cannot stop it. That is equivalent to over 60 Olympic pools of pure poops going into the river. It's a non-safe river. They're discouraging fishermen, people from swimming, which you should probably never swim in this river, from fishing here, swimming here, dogs to stay away from here. So I'm headed to a different river. Let me know where you think I'm headed right now. We got the boat, we got the trek, brand new river. I'm going blind. All I found is a ramp that is safe for me to launch the boat, and I hope it's safe. That's where we're headed right now. Over 400 millions of gallons of raw sewage being spewed into the river daily. Let's get out of here. New body of water, going blind. My goal is to catch one fish at the new body of water. Let me know where you think we're headed.
DC Water telling people to avoid any contact with the Potomac. This is the utility company works to stop sewage from overflowing into the body of water. Last week, it was a 6-foot sewer line that broke. This was last Monday along Clara Barton Parkway near the C&O Canal. So sewage has been flowing now for 9 days. Millions of gallons of it released into the river. DC Water insists drinking water still remains safe.
There was another spill of sewage into the Potomac River. 600,000 gallons in total ended up in the river because 2 pumps were clogged by non-disposable wipes, and that led to an overflow. DC Water says 600,000 is a significant number, but it's not nearly the roughly 243 million gallons of wastewater that spilled into the Potomac last month. Here in Cabin John, Maryland, we are seeing E. coli levels thousands of times above the limit for recreational activity. The advice, don't go near the water, but this does not affect drinking water in the DC area. And look at this, we are seeing constant work from crews who are trying to repair the collapsed sewer system pipe, a project that still could take a few more weeks.
I mean, the smell is what immediately tells you that something is off. There is a really pungent stench across this whole area. I mean, you could smell it as soon as we started on the trail walking down towards the riverbank.
Miller tells me the cold weather could actually be keeping the E. coli and other bacteria that is now in the river and along the shoreline alive, slowing the natural cleansing process.
So those colder temperatures slow bacterial growth, they slow down decomposition. That's what's happening out here. The pathogens that worked through the sewage water that were in the water and distributed, the water temperature right now is 39 degrees. That's refrigerator temperature water. And that water will help to slow the growth of the bacteria, prevent the die-off, a massive die-off of the bacteria. So from that standpoint, the cold water can actually help transport further distances some of the pathogens.
Another factor keeping bacteria from breaking down naturally, the ice.
We've got ice on a lot of the river. If you look at the main channel, you can see it's ice covered. That ice is reflecting sunlight. It's reflecting UV light that can help to sterilize some of the water and the pathogens that are in it. Plus, as the water moves downstream, it's out of sight, out of mind. I mean, a lot of sewage treatment or a lot of pollution management is dilution is the solution. And as it moves downriver, yes, it's getting diluted, but that's still the risk of these pathogens in the water still exists. It's significant.
And then Miller says there's the tides.
The low flow of water is also working against us right now. You need more water to help flush and dilute the pollutants that are in and present in the environment. The water level, I've never seen it this low right now. You were saying that a little while ago, last week, that this was a channel that was filled with water. And right now we're looking at a lot of rock and a lot of bare area that is not covered in water. So it's that lack of flow that's going to also have impacts on this.
Two major developments in the massive sewage spill in the Potomac River, and neither of them are good news. First is the University of Maryland School of Public Health has gone out and done testing. They took samples on January 28th. This is the most comprehensive testing that has been done to date by anybody, whether it be the government, DC Water, or in this case, the University of Maryland. And they found not only extremely high and unsafe levels of E. coli in the water, which DC Water's testing, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers testing, and the Potomac Riverkeeper's testing had all been finding E. coli for the past 2 weeks. But this testing went even further and has now revealed that there is MRSA and staph being found in the river at the site of the spill. And as far as 10 miles downriver in Washington, D.C., at the Georgetown waterfront, they found unsafe elevated levels of both staph and E. coli. So this is the first time we're getting reports of the contamination going that far downriver into the district. We knew before Fletcher's Boathouse, which is a few miles upriver from Georgetown, had tested positive for E. coli, but this is now staph and E. coli, dangerous levels found at the Georgetown waterfront. The good news from the University of Maryland's testing is they continued their testing further downriver into Prince George's County at National Harbor, and they didn't find any elevated or unsafe levels of E. coli or any other pathogens down there. So that's some good news. The other bad news, late Thursday, DC Water announced that they had discovered a massive boulder wedged inside the underground interceptor pipe that they are repairing, and that is going to delay repairs and cleanup by as much as 6 weeks. That gets us into March, that we know that this sewage will continue to spew out of the interceptor in a controlled manner into the C&O canal and then back into that underground pipe. This is just a tough news for environmentalists and everybody concerned with this disaster. The DC Department of Environment today announced that they are going to begin almost 3 weeks after the spill doing their own testing, and they are now advising people not to have contact with the river. The stench down here is so revolting. You can smell it in your car when you drive over the 495 bridge, and when you're actually down here, you can taste it. Sunday night, about 600,000 gallons of raw sewage was pumped back into the Potomac River. Let me back up and show you how this happened. As we've been telling you, DC Water has put in this system of above ground generators and pumps that have been pumping the raw sewage out of the broken pipe and using these big black pipes to pump it into the C&O canal, where it flows downstream and then is pumped back into that underground interceptor. And that has been working pretty well for the past week or more. But Sunday night, DC Water officials tell us that because of a massive clog caused by wipes that people have been flushing down their toilets, clogged 2 of these pumps, putting them out of commission. At the same time, this is right about the time of the Super Bowl, they experienced a heavy flow of sewage coming through the interceptor that they could not keep up with, and there was an overflow. That overflow, they estimate again, about 600,000 gallons of raw sewage pumped back into the Potomac River. What we also know that DC Water is acknowledging that in recent days, they had put out some of their own testing data on the level of bacteria and E. coli in the river. Turns out they had their numbers wrong. They're blaming human error, but it was way off. The good news is things are somewhat back to normal here, and the pumps are once again working well enough to keep the vast majority of this raw sewage from making its way into the Potomac River. As we go into this weekend, when we know we're going to have warm temperatures, when we know you're going to want to get out there, kids are going to want to play, dogs are going to want to run, just don't do it down by the Potomac River, anywhere downriver of the 495 bridge. The two newest developments we have, and the biggest and most important, is that the DC government, the Department of Environment and Energy for the District of Columbia, has now, again, more than 3 weeks after the spill, issued its strongest warning to residents to stay away from the river, both you and your pets. They are telling you not to come in contact with the river, not to recreate on or around the river, and certainly not to fish in the Potomac River until further notice. And now the district government has begun its own testing of water quality at 3 sites along the Potomac River in DC and 3 sites along the Anacostia River in DC. The most recent test results we have that do date back about a week do show unsafe levels of E. coli all through that stretch of the river. It does show some unsafe levels in locations, including Georgetown waterfront, of staph. And near the actual site of the spill, an antibiotic-resistant form of staph known as MRSA has been found up there.
Hey everybody, this is Dean Axe, Potomac Riverkeeper, out here at Lock 10, right above where the sewage spill happened. This is the actual all raw sewage behind me that's draining from this unnamed tributary into the Potomac River. And the Potomac River right now is a trickle because we're in the state of a drought. So this is just an extraordinary amount of flow of raw sewage and high concentrations into the Potomac River. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never seen anything like it. And the smell is awful. And we're out here collecting samples to get some type of analysis of the impacts of water quality. We'll have those for you probably the next day or so, but this is just really concerning what we're seeing out here. So last week, this is where all the sewage was discharging, and DC Water has pretty much contained a lot of that sewage into the C&O Canal. And then this ran down, and you can see it's just a tiny little trickle. If anything, this is all toilet paper and sewage that I hope they're going to do some type of remediation. But then it runs down underneath the C&O Canal, under literally an aqueduct that goes maybe another 50 yards down the Potomac River, and there's still flow coming from that stream once it goes under the C&O Canal into the river. And we don't understand where that flow is coming from, if it's leaking from the canal, but we're trying to investigate that. We're going to be sampling more tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to some of the videos of the people that live and drive past that area. And yeah, they said, you couldn't go near it without smelling the stench. And I just can't imagine. I don't want to imagine. I don't want to imagine smelling that. Oh, man. Yeah, this isn't funny. It's close to DC where Donald Trump is, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the drinking water has always been a problem here in this country. That's why a lot of people will not touch tap water. That's been problematic for a long time. Yeah, I don't even really know anybody that drink directly from the tap. because it's very unhealthy. I remember when we had a water main break in my kitchen, and one of the plumbers that came out, he was a brother, and he told me, he said, "Don't drink the tap water. Don't drink it." He said, "It is really bad. Don't drink it." And I told him, I said, "I don't drink it. Always drink my bottled water. And plus, I make my own alkaline water. That's usually what I drink." But I remember him telling me, he said, "Don't drink it. It is really bad." Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, well, they got their work cut out for them because, when those underground pipes like that burst, that's a lot of work. Because you gotta dig up the earth and everything all around the pipe and get down there and repair it. That's a lot of work, and those pipes are big, they're huge, and they're very heavy. So, they got their work cut out for them. That's for sure. Mhm. Yeah, 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 not being able to fix that for, like, 9 days, that's a lot of time going by when you have that amount of raw sewage being dumped into the river like that. Mhm. It's even good for your pets. I was reading that when I first got Loretta. I had read whether it was safe to give her alkaline water, and it said, "Yes, give your cat and your dogs alkaline water." Mhm. Yeah, and it's no telling how old that pipe was before it burst. That pipe could be really old. And that's another factor that plays into it as well. So y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and conclude. And if you got a weak stomach, don't come to the next live because we're gonna watch some Somalian people and their customary ways of how they eat food. It's not for people with weak stomachs. So, y'all, I will see you at 1:45, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon if I don't see you again. Shalom, family.